Heading out onto circuit now are the competitors for the JMT Monoposto Championship. The entry list for this one's on page 32 of your programme, page 32. You can add in one car that we are expecting to be there on the grid, car number 70, which is Chris Hodgen, can be added into the F3 class. So car number 70, Chris Hodgen, H-O-D-G-E-M, from Chorley at the wheel of the Revi363.com, entered Delara F304. The grid then for this one, if you wish to make a note of it, they line up as follows. On pole position is where we see the number 13 car, 1-3, in the hands of Tony Bishop, and alongside is 82, which is Ben Cater. I say alongside, but it's a 2x2 staggered grid in reality. So number 13, Tony Bishop on pole position, and on the outside of that front row of the grid is number 82, which is Ben Cater. The second row of the grid, car number 70, Chris Hodgen, and number 18, which is David Gillett, with row 3 being 94, Ashley Dibden, and number 31, Chris Davison. The fourth row of the grid is car number 29, Richard Purcell, and number 15, Simon Tate, with row 5 being 89, James Drew Williams, and number 44, which is Kevin Otway. The sixth row of the grid is car number 36, Mike Hatton, and 38, which is Mark Drew. Row 7 is 32, Terry Clark, and number 99, which is Matt Jordan. The eighth row of the grid is number 6, Peter Venn, and alongside him is 59, which is Chris Lord, with row 9 being number 5, Russ Giles, and 90, which is Richard Fors, and the 10th and final row of the grid, number 56, Kevin Cooling, and number 10, which is Neil Harrison. So that's the order that they should line up in. There is a gap towards the tail end of the field by the look of things, and that's going to be, just having a quick look through, 9th row of the grid, where something isn't quite as you would have expected, but I think that largely might be because someone's not quite in the right position. Away they go on their warming up lap, and let's just have a quick look and see who might be missing there. It certainly looks as though Chris Lord's number 59 car is there, which is the Vauxhall Lotus. So there's Russ Giles, there's Chris Lord, there is the number 56 car of Kevin Cooling, and then we've got a couple of cars going very slowly indeed. Neil Harrison going very slowly, and number 27, right, Neil Harrison's clearly got an issue, has he? He has, I think the sensible thing to do would be to turn right at the end of the pit lane here. Neil Harrison is going to, by common sense, yet sensible thinking by the driver, gets the car well and truly out of the way. So clearly there's been issues with his car, which is going to prevent his inclusion in the race, and I think a quick bit of assistance by the marshals just to get that car out of the way. Neil doing the sensible thing, coming off the brakes and rolling the car backwards downhill into the pit lane, so sensible driving. Tony Bishop will start from pole position. His is the blue and Dayglow car. Second is the black car with the gold flash in the hands of Ben Cater, who is so keen on trying to warm up the tyres and the brakes that he's actually just snatched a brake heading up in towards Surtees corner. Let's hope that he's not flat spotted the front left-hand corner of that car tyre that is going to, of course, sit there on the outside of that front row of the grid. And row 2 of the grid, just to give you the colours, it's the largely red and white car of Chris Hodgen, number 70, alongside the dark blue and yellow car in the hands of David Gillett. The errant car at the tail end of the field in the hands of Neil Harrison is now safely in the pit lane, which means that we are very shortly about to get this race underway, scheduled for 15 minutes for the JMT Monoposto Championship. Let's say a championship which has already had races so far this year up at Alton Park, and at Alton Park we saw race wins go the way of Tony Bishop in the first race. It was Chris Davidson in the second race, and well, at Cadwell Park where they went to after that, Robbie Watt, who you don't see out in the Monopostos this weekend, he's out racing in the F3 Cup instead. Well, he claimed both of the wins at Cadwell Park, so can Tony Bishop make it win number 2 of the season? Can Ben Cater make it win number 1 of the season for him, or are there others out there that are all going to be squabbling away? It was all rather close in qualifying, with what, little more than 1.5 seconds separating the top 6 or so cars on the grid. The green flag's given at the tail end of the field. The red lights are about to come on any second now, which they do, and as the revs rise and the lights go out now, it's a good start from pole position. It's a very poor start from Chris Hodgen, who was 3rd but has already been overtaken by a fast starting Chris Davison, who's up to 4th place. Tony Bishop, though, is side by side with Ben Cater for the lead of the race. There's contact wheel to wheel between the two of them. Tony Bishop spins round, that's going to split the pack, and Tony Bishop sort of disappeared behind a tree on the run up towards Druids and has not reappeared, but there was just very light contact between himself and Ben Cater, and through and into the lead of the race has now gone David Gillett. So Gillett leads. Ben Cater has clearly got suspension damage and a puncture by the look of things as a result of that contact between the two of them. So frustratingly, unfortunately, the two cars that started on the front row of the grid have both had problems, one of which is destined for the pit lane, Ben Cater with damage. However, for our pole sitter, Tony Bishop, it looks as though he might have got away with it.
It looks okay. He is currently flat last and doing his best to catch up as many places as he can, but he's going again. I'm not sure the tyres are going to be in perfect condition because there was a fair amount of tyre smoke, wasn't there, just as the car went around on the run towards Druid. So maybe that car is not going to be perfect, but certainly it's running, and it's made up one place already as it heads down towards Paddock Hill Bend, which is good news. The advantage has really been to the race leader, isn't it? Because David Gillett from the outside of the second row of the grid was able to come through that, avoid any problems, and lead at the end of the first lap by over 1.5 seconds. So 1.67 seconds the advantage of Gillett over Chris Hodgin in second place, car number 70, at the end of lap number 1. They're now completing lap number 2, and that gap has gone out to 2.003 of a second. So that problem on the opening lap, that contact on the opening lap, has played beautifully into the hands of David Gillett.
He really has, hasn't he? Yeah, David Gillett, who finished on the podium in the first race of the season at Alton Park. He wasn't able to start the second race, though. He also non-finished at Cadwell Park in the first race before finishing 6th in the second. So it's been a bit of an up and down season, really, for David Gillett. So he would dearly like to hang on to his current position. He's doing all the right things about it at the moment, isn't he? He pulled out another 0.3 of a second between himself and the number 70 car in the hands of Chris Hodgin last time through. So over the start-finish sign they come. Gillett leads. Number 70 Chris Hodgin there in second place, looking as though he might have been caught a shade more by Chris Davison this time through. Let's have a look. Yeah, Chris Davison in third place, just posts the fastest lap of the race we've seen so far. So that grey car with its Dayglow orange flashes down the side of it, 46.081, bringing him closer to the car that sits there in second position. Let's not forget the car in third place. Chris Davison has claimed a win so far this year. He won round 2 of the championship season at Alton Park.
Here he comes, heading down the Cooper Straight, down towards Surtees, the left-hander. The top 3 are not troubling each other, are they? In fact, the top 4 are pretty spaced out now as they turn through Clearways. Up towards Clark Curve goes the race leader. Up towards the Brabham Straight, the completion of another lap goes the race leader. That's another lap in the book. And we have over 10 minutes of the race, 11 minutes and 44 seconds of this race remaining. And there are sort of around about 1 second or thereabouts gaps between the top 5 cars, aren't there, as they go through and complete now 4 laps in the book. 11.5 minutes of the race remaining. The race leader making his way through Graham Hill Bend. Let's keep an eye on that gap between the top 2, because you can be sure that Chris Hodgin is doing his best to bring down that gap. It was 2 seconds at the end of lap number 3. At the end of lap number 4, it had come down to 1.7 seconds. So he's bringing the gap down. It's a fair job to bring it down to be close enough to have a look about challenging for the lead, but keep an eye on the gap. It was 1.7 at the end of lap number 5, still 1.7 exactly. So it's been able to, Gillett has been able to respond on that last lap and keep the gap pretty much the same as it was on the preceding lap, and in turn 1.3 seconds behind in third place is Davison in car number 31.
Yeah, the top 5 all lap within 1/10 of a second of each other. 46.3 for the leader, 46.3 for second, 46.3 for third, 46.3 for fourth, and a 46.4 for the car that's there in 5th position.
It's quite impressive, isn't it?
It's very. I'm just keeping an eye on Tony Bishop as well. His progress is continuing. The pole sitter, having had that spin and incident on the run up towards Druids on lap number 1. Well, he was 14th. He's now moved up to 13th, but he's now in amongst the traffic and finding it slightly more difficult to overtake the next of the cars, which is going to be the white car of Russ Giles. He dives to the inside, squeezes his way through, so another position gained. That means that Tony Bishop at the end of this lap should be up to 11th, having started it in 13th, and he might even be able to sneak one further place here, because he's now very much closing up onto the coattails of car number 99, Matt Jordan. Over the start-finish line he goes, And yeah, the dark blue car with its day glow flashes in the hands of Tony Bishop sides past Matt Jordan. Another place gained. That means that he's now, what, up into 10th?
So those tyres can't be too bad, can they? Because he's making really good progress. What was the lap time as well? Let's have a look at the last lap for Tony Bishop, up into 11th place, 46.812, which compares to the fastest lap of the race for Davison of 46.081. So maybe the tyres aren't absolutely perfect, but he's still able to make up a good deal of places, which is good news into the final 10 minutes of the race. 9 minutes and 17 seconds of the race remaining. Gillett it is that leads, and 7 laps are completed. Hodgin puts in the fastest lap of the race on that last lap, lap number 7, 45.751. So Hodgin in second place with the fastest lap of the race, and he's brought the gap down in putting in that fastest lap to under 1 second between himself and the race leader. That is going to be significant when they get into the traffic. Less than 1 second between the top two. Hodgin in second in car number 70, 0.954 of a second behind Gillett at the end of lap number 7.
Yeah, they're just about to catch one of the first of the cars in the field as well, which is Kevin Cooling's Formula Renault, the Formula Renault Tatius car that's just turning its way out of Paddock Hill Bend now, with the race leader bearing down on him. He will want to make sure, will David Gillett, that he's able to squeeze his way through and not get compromised by the back marker. Kevin Cooling sees him coming, moves neatly out of the way, so not a great deal of time lost there for David Gillett. However, in second position, yes, largely just met the back marker in the wrong place, didn't he, Chris Hodgin? Just as they got towards the apex at Graham Hill Bend, and well, that's probably cost Chris Hodgin a little bit of time, and it's now costing also the car in third place, Chris Davison, a bit of time, because he met the Kevin Cooling cars. They went through Surtees and up towards McLaren, so race leader should have extended his leading margin. It was 1.1 seconds as they started the lap. This time they go through. Gillett leads, the gap between himself and Hodgin, yeah, 1.8.
Wow, that was really costly. I didn't expect that it would be. Cooling did nothing wrong. He was just wrong place at the wrong time, and that's very much part of Monoposto racing. There is, as we were saying during qualifying this morning, quite a big differential between the various classes and the various speeds. So therefore, it doesn't take long before they get in the traffic, and that's very much part of the skill that they have to adopt to work out how to get through the traffic. The fastest lap of the race has just been put in by Tony Bishop on those rhombus-shaped tyres that I don't think are very rhombus-shaped, because he's put in the fastest lap of the race. So that car, after the spin on the opening lap, is proving to be very, very quick indeed, and a 45.530 for the man that took pole position this morning with a pole position time of 44.894 this morning, puts in the fastest lap of the race on lap number 9. Tony Bishop 45.530, and he's up into 8th place in doing so. 1.6 seconds between the top two, between Hodgin and Gillett. Car number 18, Gillett it is that leads. 10 laps are in the book, and we've got 6 minutes and 40 seconds remaining.
Yeah, Tony Bishop now up into 7th position at the wheel of car number 13, having safely dispatched the Lola of James Drew Andrews down into 8th on that lap. So progress continues, but now Tony Bishop is up into 7th. That's where his progress is probably going to struggle to get much higher, because he's, what, 12.2 seconds behind the next of the cars up the road. So he's got a big old chunk of work to do to catch, and then try and get past the number 29 car in the hands of Richard Purcell. The leading 3 over the start-finish line. Another lap concluded, another lap in which out front and leading the race is David Gillett. That's 11 laps completed. The lead gap did come down a shade on that lap. About half a second, yeah, on that lap. It's still hovering at about 1.3 seconds though between the two of them, but there's further traffic now. It's going to be a busy couple of corners here. David Gillett almost gets chopped by one of the back markers that just sees him coming at the last minute. I think that was the Vauxhall Lotus of Chris Lord that was just about to turn in towards Surtees, looked in his mirrors before he did so, and thankfully at the last minute took off a bit of steering lock to allow the race leader through.
It's just swings and roundabouts where you catch up with the traffic, and it can one lap it can play into your advantage, the next lap it can play very much against you, and now we have a gap of 1.4 seconds, so 1.5 seconds between the top two. The gap has extended on that lap, and it's a gap that's going to wax and wane while they're in the traffic, and they're going to be in the traffic for the rest of the race without any shadow of a doubt, as the race leader turns out of Graham Hill Bend, heads down the Cooper Straight, down towards the left-hander at Surtees, into Surtees. There's one of the cars about to be lapped between himself and the second place car as they head through clearways. That back marker has now been ticked off by the second place car, so up towards the line they go. Second place, of course, Hodgin, the leader. Gillett, Davison still in third place, and still that fastest lap of the race on lap number 12 has gone the way of the recovering pole position man Tony Bishop in car number 13, 45.038. We've got 13 laps in the book, and Gillett from the outside of row number 2, car number 18, continues to lead after 13 laps.
Yeah, continues to lead. Through goes Tony Bishop once more. Let's have a look. Well, he sets another new fastest lap of the race. Car number 13, Tony Bishop, in 7th position, down into the 44s, a 44.729. 44.729. That is quicker than his pole position time, Tony Bishop. So quicker in the race than he was in qualifying. And it wasn't that many laps ago that I said he'd got lots of work to do to catch the car ahead. He was 12.2 seconds behind the car in 6th place, number 29, Richard Purcell. That's now down to 5.5 seconds. He's absolutely flying, isn't he?
It's amazing what a bit of red mist can do, isn't it, after a problem on lap number 1. These recovery drives are always fascinating to watch. And Tony Bishop, who had pole position, oh goodness, that is that
Chris Davison.
It is our third place car going off into the gravel at on the rise up Howard Hill, and the car is not good. The car is not good after rejoining. It stopped on the way up towards Druids, so that's a bit of disappointment for Chris Davison from third place. It's going to elevate car number 94, Ashley Dibden, up into third place, but poor old Davison going off in the gravel at the exit of Paddock Bend.
What attracted me to it was I just saw a little bit of smoke coming out the back of it, as though there was a mechanical issue, so it may well have been that there was just something there. And if you look towards the point where he went through the gravel, you can see 3 black bits in the gravel, which tends to suggest that the undertrail on that car has taken a bit of a battering and has left some of remnants of it in the gravel trap there.
Oh dear, oh dear. So unfortunately Chris Davison retiring on the way up towards Druids, and we've got just under 3 minutes of the race remaining. Let's see what Tony Bishop is doing. Therefore, he gets elevated up another place. He's up into the top 6 now with the demise of Chris Davison. So Davison continues to fall down the order as they come across the line and complete lap number 15. But it is the car of David Gillett who leads, and his advantage has come right the way down, 0.6 of a second on that last lap in the traffic. So the gap less than 1 second now between himself and second place Hodgin. We've got 2.5 minutes of the race remaining. Gillett it is that leads, 16 laps in the book. The top 3 have all come through. Dibden is now in third place, Tate in 4th place, Purcell in 5th place, and Bishop right on his tail in 6th.
Yeah, they've got the leaders though absolutely together this time, heading out of Graham Hill Bend. The dark blue car with its yellow flashes in the hands of David Gillett, the largely red and white car of Chris Hodgin. They've got traffic that they need to try and work their way through. That is going to be Kevin Cooling's car, which gets well and truly out of the way this time. And as they then start to squirt the accelerator pedal up through the gears over the start-finish line, Chris Hodgin closing in the slipstream of David Gillett. And as they come over the start-finish line, Gillett's really going to feel the pressure here on the run up towards Paddock Hill Bend. Tries to just show the nose of the car at the inside of David Gillett. Came from too far back, really, Chris Hodgin, to make it a true overtaking attempt, but is making sure that the race leader knows that he is not that far away. And they've also got further traffic just up the road that needs dealing with. One car of which I think is going to be Kevin Otway's car, as again Chris Hodgin looks to try and squeeze his way past David Gillett on the run towards Graham Hill Bend, but it cost him time on the exit.
Yeah, just did it a bit too much, didn't he? Got a wiggle coming out of the corner, and that's a great shame, because it's cost him quite dearly as they head around Clearways up towards Clark Curve they come, still with 2 back markers to be dealt with before they get to the conclusion of this lap. Across the line they go, not yet got past the back marker, but that was a very costly moment at Graham Hill Bend for Chris Hodgin. It looked as if it was setting itself up for a grandstand finish. We've now got less than 1 minute of the race remaining, and there's time to be made up. So not only has he got to close once again, but he's also got to think about where he's going to pass. That's a very costly moment on the last lap at this exact point, going around the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. Down goes the accelerator, down the Cooper Straight into Surtees, the left-hander still in the same order. David Gillett needs to make this neat and tidy, getting past the back marker because he's got another lap to do. We've got 20 seconds on the timing beam as they come up towards the line. They're going to get one more lap out of this one. Up towards the line they go. And Hodgin has closed up. He's not quite close enough, but he's not going to be held up as he goes through Paddock Hill Bend. He's very, very determined, isn't he? Chris Hodgin in second place, up towards Druids. What can he do? Can he close right up around Druids? Yes, he can, but not quite close enough. But he's now going to be in the same position that he was 2 laps ago.
Yeah, it's taken him 2 laps as he get back to the same point where he was. And as they then head out of Graham Hill Bend along the Cooper Straight for the final time, David Gillett hanging on to this very slender lead of the race. Chris Hodgin there hounding him all of the way in second position, but they turn their way through McLaren up towards Clark Curve for the final time. The checkered flag is being readied, and well, David Gillett is going to claim the win, but chasing him all the way to the start-finish line is Chris Hodgin. David Gillett claims the win. Chris Hodgin is there in second position. It's going to be a bit of a gap before we await the arrival of the third place car. It's going to be car number 15, Simon Tate, at the wheel of his 2002 Dallara that should just finish in third place, but Tony Bishop is hounding him towards the start-finish line. It is car number 15, Simon Tate, who just finishes in third place ahead of the fourth place car of Tony Bishop. How was that for a recovery drive from the tail end of the field back to fourth place for Tony Bishop? Fifth place is number 29, Richard Purcell, who slowed down towards the end of the race there. Sixth was number 94, Ashley Dibden. He had problems and also had a poor lap there as well, so he lost a few places, did the number 94 car of Ashley Dibden. Seventh place, we wait the arrival of over the start-finish line in a second now. So through in seventh place, gaining the position on that final lap is the number 36 car in the hands of Mike Hatton. Down to seventh, therefore, down to eighth from seventh goes James Drew Williams. Ninth goes away of number 5, Ross Giles, and it's Kevin Otway that completes the top 10. Well, David Gillett really just needed to make sure that he picked his way through that incident between the 2 front row men, Tony Bishop and Ben Cater, as they just made contact with each other at the bottom of the dip at Paddock Hill Bend. And with the 2 cars spinning and slowing ahead of him, once he'd gone through and taken the lead of the race, it was a lead that he never relinquished. He built a margin of what was at one point in the race almost 2 seconds, but claimed victory at the end of 20 laps of racing by exactly 0.3 of a second, 0.300 of a second, and he'll be absolutely delighted with that with David Gillett. His second podium visit of the season in race number 5 of the year, but more importantly, it's his first win of the year.
Okay, well, I'm going to take a managerial decision. Have we got, is that Simon Tate? Okay, so I'm going to do a podium for the overall top 3, but just with the top 2 drivers for race 2 of the weekend, the JMT Monoposto Championship. Let's get our second place driver, Chris Hodgin, onto the podium. Well done, Chris. Congratulations. And Stephen is here, and so is James from MSBR to present the trophy. So well done to Chris. And he gets a handshake and a trophy as well. And then to our winner, David Gillett. Well done. Congratulations, David. Congratulations. On the top step of the podium he will go. We don't, unfortunately, have our third place driver, Simon Tate, here, but we do get opportunity to have a very quick word with our winner. First of all, tell us about the hop down, because I'm only little. There we go. Thank you very much indeed. Tell us about the start.
I had a great start for me. I'm traditionally not a good starter, so I took a third place straight away, and I was following Ben and Tony behind Paddock Hill Bend, and after that I saw they touched, and I thought, okay, they got away with it, and the next thing I know, Tony's all skew-whiff and across the circuit, and all I could do to just not aim in the side of the car, which I didn't want to do, so I feel sorry for them both, but we had a great race after that. You know, I wasn't sure when it was going to come back round, if there was a safety car incident, if Tony's car was stood across the circuit, but it was a great race. I enjoyed it.
It was a super race. The grid are lining up, so one very quick question. It was an amazing race for you. You closed up, had a little problem at Graham Hill Bend, and then had all the work again to do.
Yeah, struggled a little bit in the race for a bit of fitness, I think. I've not driven properly for a while.
Broken your leg, apparently?
Well, not quite my leg, but I broke my foot 5 weeks ago and had a scan on Wednesday, and it's still broken, and the doctor said, you know, don't race. So did a couple of emergency stops in the road car, and I thought it was all right, so I drove down.
What a racing driver's like, eh? Well done. Congratulations. Here we go. We're about to go racing at Brands Hatch.